Well, hello everyone. Here to share the rainbow speech. You say number 8 is like rainbow speech Mizzou 8. The coloring activity right here is talk about is like with the speech, and to talk about say for number 8 is like talk about Jessie Hall. It is, and knowing about anybody probably think about Jessie Hall. What about it? About talking about if the things that more likely if you're out at night, of course that attending class or something like that. If you're out at night, that you may be able to see stars and stuff. Be able to see stars in the sky. It is. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about that, the things that more likely that you would recognize at night it is, and a lot of times it do be like what you call like spotlights it is. And here's like lights it is. You say around the building it is. But other than that, right here is you got right here is for number 8 is talk about the Jessie Hall building. And then on your hand to other things of course talked about. Of course you say for for the statue, and of course with the library for number 7. And right here is talking about right here is Jessie Hall. And anybody maybe think about that they pretty much know what Jessie Hall building looks like. That that building that stands not too far. Of course you say from the Francis Quandary, I say from the columns it is. And basically talking about it's like for so far as the noun, person, place, or thing it is. And talking about right here is that what I went ahead and drew right here is an example right here, Jessie Hall. And of course you say along with me, and of course with the family members and a friend of ours, and while we were walking, of course, and at the time anybody made me think about about the whole part about education it is of knowing about that they go to school maybe to study in a major it is. It's like if they were majoring in something and then that they seen the advertisements you say maybe in the catalogs whatever it is for so far as the University of Missouri it is. But on the other hand too, that knowing about that anybody probably think about so far as the noun, and of course with the verb as so far as to say is person, place, or thing of knowing about that particular place it is. And anybody maybe think about with most schools though that that if they were to build a museum it is a lot of times though that the schools that you may have gone to, maybe a library would have been a place where you did a lot of your studying, and of course any homework assignments or anything like that you say papers due, anything like that. But let's just say that if you could go to a school to where they had museums, to where maybe an after school activity it was that there was a museum that you can walk into and learn about, which say is maybe anything related to history or anything like that, or maybe your research you say from other countries, something like that. But nowadays with most of the time that with internet it is that we probably think about with most of the time with a lot of the the web searching browsers it is that talk about that we use it about almost 100% of the time it is. And anybody maybe think about that there's like what you call that such thing as going to school online it is, huh? But on the other hand too, that knowing about, but I'll be working right here is the blue and the purple crayon right here. If this right here is like Jessie Hall at night, and anybody maybe think about that Jessie Hall at night, if you could be looking at another direction it is, such as northeast or southeast or whatever you call it, if you were east on campus or west on campus it was, I don't recognize Jessie Hall. Are you sure that's Jessie Hall? Well, I don't recognize it. That ain't no Jessie Hall, is it? Oh, if it is, well, I could oh well, I didn't know that it had 5 flags, or I didn't know it had 4 flags or anything like that. But on the other hand, the times that whenever we taking a tour going somewhere, it is maybe a few people that don't recognize something because maybe it was at nighttime. The last time you were there, it was at nighttime, or maybe it could have been we saw really rainy weather, or it could have been the crowd was too big. The crowd was like was overwhelming, or whichever it was. Anybody maybe think about, well, I recognize the stadium, of course, at nighttime, but just not Jessie Hall building. And anybody maybe think about, that what's the point, man? I'm like, you did not even draw Jessie Hall, because Jessie Hall has like what you call like 4 dorm areas or something like that, or maybe 5 dorm areas, and of course you have 5 flags all around. But I'm just drawing right here as an example right here. If this was Jessie Hall, of knowing about that I've been inside the building maybe a few times it was. Anybody maybe think about just a few times? I'm like, I don't remember going in there to take care of my taxes or nothing. Be working in here with the red, but A couple times they had free events going on over there at the university. It was to get your taxes done, and I can remember that there were volunteers over there at not Jessie Hall building, but over there off of off of Nifong Square, that they would volunteer, of course, to get your taxes done. But let's just say this was right here was an example of Jessie Hall, and anybody made me think about Jessie Hall at night. It's like talking about Jessie Hall at night, and anybody probably think about so far as say this. You say number 8 here. I talk about with number 8. This is usually how I spell 8. It is like right here is like getting say a pen that will write. It's an old pen. I can go ahead and get say black pen in it. But anyway, black pen. Go ahead and go to the see here. Look like the red showed up a little bit better. Talk about right here, trying to find a pen that will write. Anybody knows it's like that. It's like talk about you find pens and find out which ones that will write. But on the other hand too, that knowing about that, say for number 8, it is 8 at night, and I can tell anybody here that working on what you say is if it's related to homework or if it's anything related to maybe studies. It is, and I can talk about I'm not a person that wants to read a book. It is. And I could tell anybody here that more likely that I guess with college though, if it's like if it's going to be would you read this book over at Jessie Hall? Would you read this book at the library? Would you read this book over there off of say that the Christian Art Center, or in the chemistry lab or sociology, say recreations lab or something like that? Would you read the book, standing in front of a statue? It is, would you read this book? Would you read this book, say, walking up on the eastbound, of course, say, of the sidewalk? It is, and anybody probably thinking about, and what's your point? But other than that, right here is talk about right here is that you have right here is like some examples right here, some buildings right here, and anybody may be thinking about that. If I can draw some examples, anybody probably think about that. Anything that comes to my mind. I'm like, I don't know, that building may not even exist, or that building may have closed down years ago, whichever it is. I may have just made it up, but half the time it seems like anything that I'm doing here, I'm just making it up, and then maybe a few years later, or maybe a few weeks later, it is find out that that's a real place, but they don't have what you call 13 classrooms, or whichever you call it, and knowing about that. Here right here is a few buildings right here. It's like on campus it is, and what anybody maybe think about that a type of school to where that you go there, and then they have places where you can walk into, take a tour. It is like such as say Jessie Hall. It is, and on the other hand too, that knowing about you walk in there and so I talk about things that more likely you can see and learn. It is, and knowing about with me though that maybe one thing, of course, that maybe I think that maybe is made up. Anybody maybe think about what else do you think is made up? Well, maybe that was the fact about the statue. So a lot of things. Of course, I mentioned. Of course, you say from the previous videos. Of course, was the gift shop, and I'm thinking that with anybody here, maybe thinking about, well, is there a store off of campus maybe called College Cash? If there's, like I mentioned before on one of the videos I posted a few weeks ago called for College Cash, and anybody maybe thinking about that. Any ideas that more likely? I'm like, yep. I make them up, and it just seems like people are just looking at me. It's like that there ain't no star. That there ain't no restaurant called the Apocalypse Felice or something like that. But Truant Arts Festival, whichever it is. But on the other hand too, that knowing about that I'm just like, talk about person, place, or thing. Of knowing about that, besides you say a statue, it is talking about that off of campus it is, other universities it is, that talking about it's like a type of person, place, or thing. Whenever I was in school, it was like I mentioned before that a lot of times that if I were to pick a say topic, they would be doing like so talk about is like with the activities, talk about a person, place, or thing. write a sentence or two, of course, about a person, place, or thing. And a lot of times I'm like, well, that, do it or don't, for the grade. But I'm like, well, but anybody made me think about, you spend so much time, of course, in class, and then by the time you come home with that grade report, it seems like it's a totally different story. Because I can tell anybody here that if it's college or if it's a job or anything like that of knowing about, it seems like if you were to get a paycheck or a grade report, it seems like it's a totally different story. Why does it seem like maybe it's a totally different story? Of maybe about the fact about that something to get your attention by is now anybody maybe think about, I didn't draw all the details, of course, to say for, what the campus looks like it is. And, I'm like, hey, that, I didn't draw all the details, maybe because of the fact about, yep, I don't I don't recall all the buildings, of course, that are out there off of campus, number one and then number two it is. I'm like, yeah, even if I were to draw out some examples that they may not match, compared to more likely what you see in real life it is. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about that besides these buildings over here, on say on the east part, I mainly want to go ahead and add Jessie Hall right here. Because with Jessie Hall, though, that some people say that that the location, if Jessie Hall was a location for where I went to go pay the taxes, of course, with a friend of mine, and I tell her, years later that we went there, of course, to we did? No, we didn't. Actually, we were, we went to the building right next door or something like that, and then I'm like, yeah. What can I do to help you recognize this building? Like, well, if anything, that maybe you can just say that, give me directions on how to get there, and maybe I'll recognize it. I'm like, anybody maybe thinking about that, talk about, how do you get there, from, say, from the map it is, or anything like that. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about that, do we tend to get lost so far as between person, place, or thing? Do we tend to get lost, just because maybe it's at nighttime? If there's an event that goes on at night, and then maybe we don't recognize a building, it is at night, it is. And a lot of times, anybody maybe think about, nobody misses Jessie Hall. I'm like, you can't miss Jessie Hall. That building lights up quite a bit, just like if you remember maybe the state capitol, in Jefferson City it is, but it's like that building lights up at night, and just like over there at the Pequin, over there at the power plant it is, and I was like, hey, how can you possibly miss this building? And I could tell anybody here that, talking about, trying to make this building visible, just by drawing it, because I was not looking at no picture or nothing, because on the other hand, too, to talk about with person, place, or thing, what do the flags represent? And of course, as I would say, with the windows, and of course, other details, of course, that I went ahead and did with the drawing it is. And anybody made me think about, hey, I'm like, so far as number 8, I'm like, what's number 9? About when with number 9, number 9, is that going to be contain maybe the stadium or anything like that? I'm like, that, hey, I cannot promise anybody that more likely if I'll be doing any more what you call like secret activities of it. On the other hand, too, that knowing about that anything that more likely I do is like talking about that anything that more likely comes to my mind, besides the library, and of course, say with the Jessie Hall building, and with anybody probably think about so far as say building back the memories. And I could tell anybody here that more likely that we could have maybe taken a picture or two. Most phones have a camera, of course, on their phone it is, where we can take a picture of some moment it is, but how come that sometimes we don't do it? I know with my reason, a lot of times it seems like no cameras are allowed, because each time I pull my camera out and want to snap a picture it seems like people are like, don't bring that thing near me. But don't bring that thing near me. Almost like, yep, it's a calculator. If you don't want to do your math homework or read a book, don't bring that around me. And I could tell anybody here, to be honest with anybody, I don't like it, of course, when people want to light a cigarette around me. Light a cigarette or to drink a beer. And with anybody, I think about it, it's like, what does alcohol have anything to do with a person, place, or thing? and alcohol or a cigarette. You know, why?